about the foreign investment in November. Since January till November this year, the actual utilization of foreign investment was over 1 trillion RMB yuan, with an increase of 15.9% year-on-year. If we divide it into different industries, for service industry, the actual utilization is 400 million RMB yuan, and that's for high-tech. The year-on-year increase is 19.3%. For high-tech service industry, it increased by 20.8%. For manufacturing, the ratio is 14.3%. If we look at the source place, from BRI and ASEAN countries, actual investment increased by 24.7% and 23.7% respectively. If you look at the geographical location, from Eastern, Middle, and Western China, the actual utilization of foreign investment increased by 15.4%, 25.8%, and 13.4% respectively. The second piece of news is about the outsourcing in the first 11 months this year. Since January to November 2021, Chinese enterprises undertook the outsourcing contract at 156 billion RMB yuan, and that's an increase of 22% year-on-year. And we undertook the offshore outsourcing service contract at about 800 million, and 600 million has been executed. That's an increase of 14.4% and 16.7% respectively. By US dollars, in the first 11 months, the total contract outsourced was 22.5 billion US dollars, and the actual execution was 16 billion US dollars. That was an increase of 15% and 24% respectively. And for service industry, the execution amount was 90 billion US dollars. That's an increase ratio of 21.6%. If we look at the industrial structure in the first 11 months, Chinese enterprises undertook the information technology outsourcing, offshore, and business procedure outsourcing, knowledge outsourcing at about 289 billion, 100.3 billion, and 200 billion respectively. And that's an year-on-year increase ratio of 11.1%, 11.8%, and 20.3% respectively. For the new energy R&D, information solution, industrial design, medicine, and biotechnology R&D, they increase faster, and the year-on-year ratio was 89%, 78%, 30%, and 19.9% respectively. And also by the distribution of places in the first 11 months, for the 31 pilot cities for service outsourcing, they undertook the total contract volume of 760 billion RMB yuan. Execution number was 500 billion RMB yuan, and that was an increase ratio of 87% and 81% respectively. For the Yangtze Delta area, the execution amount was 320 billion RMB yuan. That accounts for about 50% of the total. There was an increase of 17%, 22.5%, and 11.1%.
民营企业承接离岸服务外包执行额1796亿元，占全国的27.3%，同比增长30.4%，高于全国平均增速13.7个百分点。
If we look at the nature of the enterprises, in the first 11 months, the private enterprises undertook the execution amount of 119 billion, accounting for 27.3% of the national total, and that's an year-on-year increase of 30.4%. For the foreign invested enterprises, the year-on-year increase ratio was 13%, accounting for 43.2% of the national total. And if we look at the job creation, up until the end of November this year, the service industry created 13 million job opportunities, accounting for 64.1% of the total. And in the first 11 months this year, another 870 million people found jobs, a year-on-year increase of 11.6%, and 640,000 people got a bachelor degree, accounting for about 30%. And now I'm ready to open the floor to any question from our media groups. On December the 15th, China and Russia heads of states held a video conference giving very positive comments about this year's cooperative outcomes and what will be the MOFCOM measures in the future as far as this bilateral relationship is concerned. This year, under the guidance and leadership of the two heads of states, China and Russia conquered the difficulties caused by the pandemic so that bilateral trade volume increased against the general trend. And there are three highlights. First and foremost, 130.43 billion US dollars were generated for foreign trade, and that was 33% increase year-on-year. And throughout the whole year, it is expected to exceed 140 billion US dollars. And for 12th year in a row, secondly, the structure is being improved of our foreign trade. In the first 10 months, the mechanical products trade volume was about 33 billion US dollars. That was an increase of 37.1%, accounting for 29.1% of the total trade volume in our bilateral relationship. And China's export to Russia was 1.6 billion in automobile finished cars and 2 billion US dollars in terms of the parts. That was 200% more and 40% more compared to the previous year. Third, the new business forms are burgeoning. China's transnational e-commerce is developing fast, and our overseas warehousing and e-commerce platform development are surfacing, and we also have a well-improved network boosting our bilateral trade. In the future, China will continue to closely cooperate with Russia, and we will further implement the consensus of the two heads of states so that our bilateral trade will increase in volume and improve in quality. We will invest heavily in agriculture, forestry, and mineral products and other commodities as to biomedicine, high-tech innovation, green and low-carbon development, there will be new business development in those fields. And as to transnational e-commerce, we will continue to prioritize it. And thirdly, we will cooperate over supply chain so that infrastructure will enjoy hardware and software connection, and we will pave the way for trade facilitation. Fourth, there will be some outsourced contracts concerning the projects between the two sides. Thank you. Recently, China, Russia, Japan, and EU signed a trade facilitation declaration. So, in this new era, what is the signal sent by this new declaration? Thank you for your question. This negotiation, under the framework of WTO, is designed to improve the transparency of our trade and streamline the procedure in order to further enhance international cooperation. The pandemic breaks out now and then, and international investment and trade cooperation are facing a rising number of uncertainties and instabilities. The WTO Conference 2021 notified that the direct foreign investment decreased by 35% this year. And according to the country-specific investment policies, there are more restrictive policies or tighter supervision. And those numbers are the highest since the statistics in 2003. So we could see the significance of this conference about trade facilitation. And on December the 10th, China, Russia, EU, Japan, Chile, Brazil, Nigeria, and other 112 countries announced the Declaration on Trade Facilitation, defining the targets for 2022 in terms of the negotiation. And China will steadfastly support the WTO trade facilitation efforts. We are ready to work together with the others so as to accomplish this negotiation at an early date in order to improve the environment of global investment and transnational investment. And thank you. Next question, please. Daily economy. Our export and import level exceed that of last year. In the second half of this year, what is the reason for the expected growth? And what is the comment of MOFCOM about this year's growth? In the second half of 2021, our foreign trade maintains rapid growth, and there are following factors explaining that. We maintain an economic recovery, and foreign demand is rising up. According to the United Nations, this year, the increase of goods products will be about 22.4% globally. And the second reason is there are still some imbalance between supply and demand. China enjoys a complete manufacturing system, and we can match correctly with the demand. And thirdly, the price of commodities is rising, and that triggers the growth of import. It is expected that throughout the whole year, the foreign trade structure will be improved and high-quality growth will be the highlight. And we will further cement our position as a big trading power, and we can hit the targets of quality growth. And as to the foreign trade situation, it's still very complex globally. We will continue to follow closely any change so as to solve difficulties for the foreign trade enterprises and mobilize the enthusiasm of market players so that foreign trade will maintain its current growth trajectory within a proper range. In 2020, in 28 places in China, we started the pilot projects about deepening service trade reform and what are the outcomes until now and what experience could be replicated nationwide. Thank you for your question. In August 2020, in about 28 places in China, we held the pilot project of deepening service trade reform. And since then, MOFCOM met with the other ministries to implement the decisions of the CPC Central Committee and the central government, guiding the localities to explore the new pathways, and they already generated some positive results, and about 90% of the projects have been executed. And according to the State Council, the general plan, including 122 reform, openness, and innovative measures, are already implemented. Up until now, all tasks of this reform have been going on smoothly, and about 110 have been put into the localities. So the implementation ratio is much over 90%. 5 measures have been approved by the State Council. Secondly, this pilot is a pioneer and exemplary. Since the implementation of the pilot, all localities are undertaking these projects, and they consider their local conditions to make their localized and customized plans. They actively took the initiative to explore the new ways and innovate, and there are a lot of experience that are worth replicating. Cumulatively, about 90 takeaways have been replicated nationwide. Up until now, we are organizing those takeaways, and we will very soon publish a new series of measures and cases in order to speed up the process of replication. Those measures will be important ones to stabilize our foreign trade development and foreign investment growth. And for the pilot places, they account for about 97% of the total amount of cities in China. They are the leading cities, and guided by those pilot cities, in 2020, our service trade export and import was about 4.2 trillion RMB yuan, and export increased by 29%, and service trade deficit decreased greatly. And foreign investment was about 100 billion US dollars. They account for 79% of the national total. We will continue to implement General Secretary Xi Jinping's remarks during the service fair, and according to the arrangement of the central government, we will continue to adhere to high standards in the execution phase. And for the outperforming pilot cities, we will make them the demonstrative cities for the whole nation to copy. Deepening the reform of the service trade and open wider will continue to be our priorities, just like the institutional innovation. According to the Central Economic Conference, we must take multiple measures to stabilize foreign trade and also the supply chain and industrial chain. So in terms of that measure, how will MOFCOM put it onto the ground? This year, confronted by the shocks sent by the pandemic, China's foreign trade maintains its resilience and flexibility, registering rapid growth and is picking up. And we are aware that now foreign trade development is still facing some uncertainties, imbalance, and instabilities. There are still fluctuations. International situation is still complex. The seaborne trade face bottlenecks, and we are still in lack of chips, and the cost on enterprises remains high. Foreign trade operation is under huge pressure as well. So in the future, we will implement the spirits of the Central Economic Conference to stabilize foreign trade and investment. We will keep a close monitoring of foreign trade development and take multiple measures to maintain stability in trade. And there will be 3 priorities. First and foremost, we will stabilize the market players, and we will give further play to export insurance and the export credit. And we will help the enterprises to rise up to the fluctuations of forex so as to truly relieve the pressure on the foreign trade enterprises. Meanwhile, we will accelerate the development of new models and new business forms of foreign trade. For example, overseas warehousing and e-commerce will play a bigger role in triggering foreign trade. And we will also ensure the stability of the foreign trade-related industrial chain and supply chain. And we will also build some foreign trade upgrading bases, processing industrial parks, and demonstration parks for export and import. We will implement the actions concerning the facilitation of trade, and we will work with all the other partners to smooth away the export development. And together with the SMEs and innovative enterprises, we will help them to get the settlement easier. And thirdly, we will give further play to the leading organs, for example, the foreign trade-related facilitation organs, so as to take precise measures to explore the international markets. We will also hold a lot of online and offline exhibitions and step up our efforts in the promotion of those national and international platforms. We will give better play to those open platforms, such as those online exhibitions. Thank you. Any more questions? No more. If no, then I declare this is the end of today's presser. Thank you.